Ghostwire Tokyo has a distinct identity. As I laid out in my earlier impressions video, the game has cool horror elements, an intriguing story utilizing Japanese folklore, the main character Akito and his spirit companion KK have good arcs and development, there's fun combat via the usage of magic finger gun powers, and in terms of visuals and gameplay, the game is a unique open world experience, which is impressive seeing as the open world genre is oversaturated with similar types of games and design aesthetics. See Ubisoft's general output. And while I did note that Ghostwire Tokyo had a few problems, like how there isn't a dodge option in combat, and the fact that the stealth gameplay just isn't designed all that well, it is still overall a good game. Ghostwire Tokyo is a pretty fun experience, albeit one that has a few things holding it back from greatness, issues that have become much more apparent now that I have actually finished the main story. That's why I'm putting out this video, noting those said new developments. Because posterity and all of that, it's important to me. To begin explaining my final thoughts on Ghostwire Tokyo, let's start with the combat, something that has both risen and fallen by my estimation since the last video I released, which admittedly does sound more conflicting than when Bethesda promoted Fallout 76 on a bed of lies, but I promise this will make sense by the end. So to wit, the combat in and of itself is fun and drew me in. The various magic finger gun abilities have their own strengths and weaknesses. Ripping souls out of demons' bodies is really satisfying. There is a good wealth of enemy variety, even one who looks like Adventure Time's Marceline in her demonic form, which is always a plus. The overdrive meter is cool because it's awesome to unleash devastating attacks when you're about to be overwhelmed by enemies, and the upgrade and level up system is incredibly rewarding. It's just good action gameplay, but there is a problem. See, Ghostwire Tokyo can get repetitive, mostly because the game stops giving the player new combat abilities, powers, and such roughly halfway through the experience, meaning that the game's pace really gets thrown out of sync. Even though yes, the combat is fun and satisfying, the player levels up their abilities, damage can be amplified, and there are a lot of different enemies to fight, the combat never really gets all that much more variety in the back half of the game. It's missing some extra zest that could spice up the proceedings. If anything, the game needed to add more finger gun powers, i.e. the best aspect of the game's combat, rather than just delivering nothing of note in the title's back half. And while the player can get more items later on that in theory help with stealth, those items are really useless because they highlighted just how truly ineffectual stealth is in the game. Sure, in theory, you can lure enemies away or create a barrier to hide behind, but due to the game's terrain and design, stealth is rarely a good primary option for the player. Speaking for myself, I could probably down one or maybe two enemies by being sneaky, but eventually I'd have to go loud, because the demons would inevitably realize that I was doing the combat equivalent of taking a dump in their swimming pool. They'd notice that shit. What I'm trying to say is that Ghostwire Tokyo never offers much combat variety in the back half of the game. Sure, as I said, you can level up your abilities, increase your damage, fight new enemies, and get some spells that can, in theory, help with stealth, but the combat rarely fundamentally changes. It stays the same, and as a result, the game never really becomes varied in the back half, causing it to be far less exciting. The side quests, though, kept me engaged. In fact, some of the side missions get really inventive in terms of being separate, cohesive narratives. For a few examples, there's one where a spirit of a lonely boy just wants to play hide and seek. There's another where you have to investigate why trapped spirits are stuck at a cursed construction complex. And then there's one about the rumors of a phantom train, which is cool because it's a phantom train. And truly, the side quests can get really inventive and creative, especially when you enter the spirit realm, which can get really playful in terms of level design. For example, there's upside down cities, lonely forests, and some regular environments like office buildings or basements are transformed in order to give off a more haunting aesthetic. These levels can be a solid mindfuck, and I mean that in a good way, because getting your mind blown is the shit. The story is fairly impactful too. In fact, the last couple of hours of the game actually hit me square in the emotional complex. It has good character drama, and the development between our two heroes in Akito and KK is well done, especially seeing as the two don't always see eye to eye. They have a lot of room to grow from, and as a result, it's quite well done, though I can't exactly say any more without spoiling the story. Just rest assured that Akiko and KK's story and arcs are very satisfying. Ultimately, Ghostwire Tokyo is a good experience that I can easily recommend. While the combat lacks variety in the back half and the stealth is pretty ineffectual, the rest of the title is enjoyable. There's good upgrade systems, enemy variety, character drama, level design, and some satisfying gameplay. And while yes, it has imperfections, the title has more than enough merit as a quality video game experience in and of itself. Truly, Ghostwire Tokyo has spirit. And with that, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like rating, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave a comment telling me what you think of Ghostwire Tokyo. Also, please consider checking out my Patreon page. $1 a month gets you onto my Discord server, and $5 a month allows you to start making review requests. The link to my Patreon is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, particularly my high tier ones in David, Samantha, Devlin, Mom, and Morgan. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.